Hello, everyone. My name is Scott Hamling. I'm with Move Up Mortgage here in Denver, Colorado. I'm honored to be here, and I hope you enjoy the class. This class is meant to help you, the real estate agent, understand what you can or cannot say to an appraiser, all the things that you can do to help your appraisal come in as high as possible. We're going to talk a little history. How did we get to where we are? I'm going to give you pages directly from Dodd-Frank and give you questions you should ask an appraiser before they come out to the property, as well as questions you should ask an appraiser while they're at the property. I'm going to discuss with you the 1004MC. I'm going to show you how to pull the 1004MC up in your Paragon system, your MLS system. And I'll show you what a 1004MC looks like. I'll teach you how to read it, and then I'll teach you most importantly, how to use it to come up with an appreciation rate. The 1004MC is truly the backbone for almost everything that I do in real estate. And so I'll teach you how to use that. After we go through the 1004MC, I'm going to give you a list of everything that should be included in an appraisal package of information. This is the first class that I ever came up with over 10 years ago. And I was asked to present to a group of agents. And since then, I've given this class across the country. I have this slide in there because the largest group of buyers right now are millennials. They make up over 20% of all purchases nationwide. And there's a whole bunch of them. And you and I need to be doing a better job of explaining our value to the transaction of real estate. Because millennials don't understand what we do. And the typical millennial is going to spend $92,600 on rent. And that is money they're just throwing away. And the reason that I want you to be very proactive in your reach out to millennials is that, again, they don't understand what you do as an agent, how you earn your money. And they don't understand what I do as a lender and how I earn my money. They truly believe that it's to get a mortgage, all you have to do is push a button and a rocket shoots off. And then $500,000 just magically appears and falls from the sky and they get a loan. You and I both know that it's a little bit more difficult to get a loan than that. And you and I also know all of the things that you do to earn your money. And we have to do a better job of reaching out to them because they're being scooped up by some of these giant companies that do not have real estate agent or a lender's best interests at heart. So be reaching out to your past clients, the people that you helped to buy and sell houses to for 20, 30 years, and ask them, do they have a 20-something-year-old that's just getting going? Talk to them about all the ways that they can help their child or their grandchild purchase a home instead of renting and wasting money on rent. Let's help them start to create wealth through home ownership and get to enjoy that appreciation, that wonderful appreciation that we are seeing right now in our markets. Of Oregon and here in Colorado. So be very proactive with that and reach out and get yourself some millennial buyers. A little bit of history. In 2009, I was a happy little appraiser up until 2009. I had started appraising in 1982 because in 1982, I graduated from high school here in Denver. My dad's an appraiser, and I started applying to colleges. And I got into this school called Pepperdine, and I had never seen the ocean before. And here's this school in Malibu overlooking the Pacific, and I mean, it's just such a beautiful campus. And I actually got in, kind of surprising. And I went to my parents and I said, Mom, Dad, I really want to go to school here. My dad saw how much Pepperdine costs, and he said, if you want to go to school there, you've got to get to work. And so he taught me the art of appraising. And I would fly home once a month on a Thursday. Dad would have 5 appraisals scheduled for me on Friday. I'd spend all day Friday measuring houses. All day Saturday and Sunday, I used a thing called a typewriter, which some of you might remember and some of you might not. And I'd type up the appraisal. I'd take some pictures with double-sided tape and I'd stick them to the photo page. So then I'd fly back to school Sunday night and my dad would deliver them for me on Monday. And that's how I paid for college. So by the time I got out of school, I built this great company called Hamling Appraisal Services. And it was widely considered one of the best appraisal companies here in town. And then the Great Recession hit and Dodd-Frank came out with their bill and they created the Home Valuation Code of Conduct. Basically what that did is it destroyed my business. I was no longer able to go to a lender and say, hey, give me a shout at some of your work. I do a really good job. I just became the next person in a rotation. And that's when I left appraising and got into lending because I just didn't enjoy it anymore. There are very strict guidelines of what a lender can say to an appraiser, but there are also guidelines about what a real estate agent can say to an appraiser. So it's very important that you know what you can or cannot say to that appraiser. So I'm giving you this page. So on this page, and I'm giving you this page. Both of these pages are taken directly from Dodd-Frank. And I want you to keep these pages handy. I want you to have them printed. I want you to keep them by your desk where you do most of your calls. Keep them handy. And if you ever get a call from an appraiser, and that appraiser says something to you like, hey, my name is Scott, and I'm calling to schedule an appraisal on your listing at 765 Olive Street. And I was hoping to do that Friday at 10 a.m. And you say, great, I look forward to meeting you, Scott. I've got some information for you I'd love to share with you. And I look forward to seeing you at 10 a.m. on Friday. If that appraiser says something like to you like, oh no, you can't do that. That would be a violation of the Dodd-Frank Act. I want you to have this piece of paper right in front of you. And I want you to be able to, first of all, I'm going to coach you to smile because everything sounds nicer when you're smiling. And I want you to say, oh, that's not true. I have the Dodd-Frank Act right in front of me. And you know what? I promise that I'm not going to compensate, coerce, extort, collude, instruct, induce, bribe, or intimidate you. It's right up there on the screen. I'm just going to give you some great information. And Dodd-Frank says that I can, including the consideration of additional comparable properties to make or support an appraisal. I look forward to meeting you. If you take, this is my first of 3 classes. If you take anything from any of the classes that I offer, it's to meet the appraiser at the property every single time. I can't drive home the importance of meeting the appraiser at the property. So please don't be intimidated. I run into agents who have said, you know, my brokers told me I'm not even allowed to even speak to an appraiser. It's kind of like you're in the woods and you run into a bear. You know, you run into a bear, you're supposed to look down and back away slowly. That's what they think that their relationship with an appraiser is like. And you should be there. As a listing agent, you should have more knowledge about the subject property than anyone else on this planet practically. And you're there to help with that knowledge and help with that information. So please do make sure to meet the appraiser at the property. AMCs versus a local lender. When I first started coming out to the Oregon area to present and do my classes, I was also at Cherry Creek Mortgage, and we had many offices out there. And I used to run the appraisal department at Cherry Creek Mortgage. And what I found is that Oregon has the lowest per capita number of appraisers than any other state in the country. It was so difficult back then, back in the day, getting appraisals done because the number of appraisers is so low in Oregon. And what we did at Cherry Creek, which is the parent company of my company, Move Up Mortgage, is we built out a roster of appraisers. We went into the market and we found the best appraisers, and we basically how AMCs pay an appraiser is they'll give them a cut, say 50, 60% of the appraisal fee. We were giving them the full fee. And we truly value our appraisers that are on our roster. It is critically important that if you are referring a buyer to anyone, that you are referring a buyer to a company that has some sort of control of their appraisers. The appraisers are required to have geographic competency on any appraisal. And however, that can be a little bit of a question thing. You know, how many times does it take to appraise in an area before you get that geographic competency? So here are 2 questions I want you to ask every appraiser after you get the day and time set up. Again, big smile on your face. This is just to gather some information. First question I want you to ask is, do you have access to our local MLS? Do you have access to our local MLS? First question. I've presented in Salem, and I know that Salem has a different MLS system than in Portland, yet it's only about an hour or so away, hour and a half probably. I did do a drive one time when it snowed an inch of snow in Portland, and your city doesn't handle snow very well. But I was on that highway between Salem and Portland, and it took me 6 hours to get from Salem to Portland, and it was a crazy drive. But to ask that question, do you have access to our local MLS? Second question I want you to ask is, Can you tell me approximately how many times you've appraised in this area over the past couple of years? Both of these questions go directly to the geographic competency of that appraiser. And hopefully this never happens. It shouldn't, but if it does, and maybe the appraiser says something like, you know, I don't get out to Salem very often. You know, I live in Portland. I get out there about once, maybe twice a year. Great. I look forward to seeing you. I've got great information for you. Still go forward with the appointment. As soon as that phone call ends, though, I want you to call the mortgage company or the bank that is sending out this appraiser. And I want you to say, hey, I'm a little concerned about the geographic competency of this appraiser. They're coming from Portland. They don't have access to our MLS system. This is making me nervous. Is this making you nervous? And if it is, then they can cancel and reassign that appraisal so that maybe, hopefully you get an appraiser next time that does have that geographic competency that is from the Salem area. And it is critically important that you ask those questions and make sure that you do have that geographic competency. If you get a low FHA appraisal, it sticks with the property for 4 months. VAs stick with that buyer for 6 months. And because of this thing called the Uniform Collateral Data Portal, I could envision a time in our near future when every appraisal is going to start sticking with a property for a certain amount of time. So again, it's going to be very important to get as much value as you can and as high of a value as you can, and make sure that you are meeting the appraiser of the property. If you're writing down notes, I'd like for you to please write request a reconsideration of value. Again, request a reconsideration of value. Proper terminology in our world goes such a long way. And if you have an appraisal that comes in below your sales price and you want to contest it, you're going to call the bank or the mortgage company and you're going to say, may I please have your policies to request a reconsideration of value. That's the code word for, I'm going to fight this appraisal. I think I can get this appraisal raised. So here are the 3 steps to do a proper reconsideration of value. Step number 1 is I want you to go through that appraisal with a fine-tooth comb, and I want you to pick out every simple mistake. Maybe it says something like 650 Niagara Street, but the address should be 650 Niagara Way. I just want you to write down all of the simple little errors that are in that appraisal. And the reason that you're doing this for step number 1 is what you're doing by pointing out mistakes is you are getting into the subconscious mind of that appraiser that they made mistakes. Because actually what you're asking with the reconsideration of value is you're asking that appraiser to admit that they possibly could have made a very large mistake because you're asking them to change their appraised value. So again, step number 1 is very important. Just point out that they made other mistakes. Step number 2 is you need to get rid of all of the comps that do not support your sales price. You need to explain why these comps should not have been used. You need to call the listing agent. Call the listing agent up and ask, you know, I looked at the pictures. Was there maybe anything on the interior of that house that would have adversely affected its value? Ask those questions. Find out about the property. Find out about anything that maybe the appraiser just doesn't know. But you've got to get rid of the comps that don't support your sales price is step number 2. And then step number 3 is I need you to provide a minimum of 3 new sold comparables that were not used in the original report and explain why these are better. So again, I need you to supply a minimum of 3 new sold comps that were not used in the original report and explain why these are better. So step number 1, point out the mistakes in the report. Step number 2 is you get rid of your bad comps, the comps that don't support your sales price. And step number 3 is I need you to provide a minimum of 3 new sold comps that do support your sales price. It takes me generally, when I'm working on a reconsideration of value, it will take me somewhere between 3 to 4 hours to do a proper reconsideration of value, and I'm pretty quick. I'm anticipating that it's going to take all of you probably double that amount of time, good 6 to 8 hours. I want you to plan on spending almost an entire day working on this reconsideration of value. And you're going to do that so you can say to your seller, to your buyer, to whoever, that you are fighting for this appraised value. But what's the reality? The reality is up on your screen. The reality is that you have less than a 10% chance of getting that value raised after it's been turned in for a whole bunch of reasons, and we'll go through those. So I'm going to give you hopefully some tools that will help you get your house to appraise up front rather than do a reconsideration of value after the fact, because reconsiderations of value are tough. Also, I should say, if there are any questions, please put them in the chat. And somebody that's maybe Terry or Tracy or Jeremy, at the end, we can go through the chat or answer any questions then too. So again, reconsiderations of value are tough, less than a 10% chance. So let's get you some tools for your tool belt to get your house to appraise up front. All right, so now we're going to start talking about the 1004MC. The 1004MC used to be required to be included in every appraisal. It's no longer required by Fannie Mae. They stopped requiring it a couple of years ago, 2-3 years ago. But appraisers still use it. And most companies still require it. And MC stands for market conditions. So this is known as the 1004MC, is a market conditions addendum. In your Paragon system, you have access to a new system called Paragon. There are going to be step-by-step. I'm going to show you step-by-step things that you're going to do to pull up the 1004MC. So in Paragon, under status, you have to choose all active, under contract, and sold. Now for sold, I need you to search back 1 year because the 1004MC is based off of a year's worth of data. So you have to search back 1 year. It looks like I put in a city and close date there over on the right side of that, Paragon form. Go to the next screen. It lists them all out. You guys have seen this a million times. You click the button that grabs them all, grabs all this data. After you got that, you go to this screen. You're going to choose all listings. So you've grabbed all the data, and you're going to click the button at the top that says generate report. And down at the bottom, it will say select date. So when I pulled these screenshots for you, it was back on June 4th. So I was searching back a year from that date, and that's the date there at the bottom. Then you click generate report. And this is the 1004MC, this box of information. This box of information, as like I said, is so critically important for you to know and understand. It will help you on listing appointments, set yourself apart on listing appointments. It will help you with your buyers. It will help you with your appraisals. It will help you in every single facet of your business to start incorporating the 1004MC. I have agents that I coach that farm neighborhoods, and in their Outlook calendars, they have a monthly reminder on the first of each month to run a 1004MC for the neighborhood that they farm. And that way they now have 1004MCs with the median sales price on them for 5, 6, 7 years. And it's so impressive when they go out on a listing appointment and they can say to that seller, I saw that you purchased your home back in July 2015. And as you know, I do a lot of business in this neighborhood. So back in July 2015, you can show them that the median sales price was $500,000. And then you can show them today that the median sales price is $1 million. So you can say, great investment, you've 50% increase in this neighborhood over these many years. It sets yourself apart. So first, I'd like for all of you to look at this 1004MC, and I'm going to teach you how to read it. Then I'm going to teach you how to use it to come up with an appreciation rate. So you might also want to grab a calculator. So I'm going to grab my phone real quick. I'll be right back. So up on the screen, you're going to see several columns. I want you to look for a column at the top where it says prior 7 to 12 months. It'll be the first column, prior 7 to 12 months. That column is the first half of last year. This is the first half of the year that we just lived through. The second column says prior 4 to 6 months. That is considered to be the third quarter. And then the last column, current to 3 months, that is the quarter that is ending as of today. So again, the first column, first half of the year. Second column is the third quarter. And current to 3 months is the quarter that is ending as of today. The main line that I really want you to look at is if you go down about just over halfway, you're going to see the median comparable sales price. First half of the year, at the median comparable sales price was $835,000. In the third quarter, it had jumped to $890,000. And in the current 3 months, it has jumped again to $959,000. Just like Colorado, Oregon has seen some huge increases in value. And we have seen some neighborhoods increase 20, over 30% over the past year. This is how an appraiser is going to come up. This is one of the ways that an appraiser is going to come up with their adjustment for time, for older comparables. So I want you to all bust out your phone now and turn on your calculator. And I'm going to walk you through how to determine the appreciation rate for this neighborhood. So to do that, I want you all to take the current to 3 month median sales price, $959,000. So you put $959,000 in your phone. I want you to hit minus, and you're going to subtract the prior 7 to 12 month median sales price of $835,000 from 959. So 959 minus 835. That equals $124,000. You're then going to hit divide, and you're going to divide $124,000 by the prior 7 to 12 month median sales price of $835,000. And I'll walk through this again, I promise. And that equals, everyone look up here at your screen, it equals 0.1485. What you just determined is that this neighborhood has seen a 15% appreciation rate over the past 12 months. So again, to determine the annual appreciation, this is kind of one of those hard things to do on Zoom. So hang in there with me. I'll walk you through it a couple times. And I think Jeremy even has a cheat sheet on this that we can send out to you as well. So we'll send out a cheat sheet on this appreciation rate. Again, to figure out the annual appreciation rate, you take the current to 3 month median sales price, $959,000. You subtract the prior 7 to 12 month median sales price of $835,000. So 959 minus 835 equals 124,000. You then hit divide, and you divide 124,000 by the prior 7 to 12 month median sales price of 835. And that equals 0.148. 0.148 is another way of saying the annual appreciation rate has been 15% over the past year. So how would you use this in real life? Here's a real life example of this. Put this together in my head. You're getting ready to list this house for sale. You have a model match down the street that sold 9 months ago for $500,000. Approximately, where should you be listing your house based off of this 1004MC? So this house sold 9 months ago for $500,000, right? So you're going to take the sales price, $500,000. Okay? You're going to multiply it by the annual appreciation rate times 0.15. That equals $75,000. You now need to get the monthly, so you divide it by 12. Monthly works out to be $6,250, $6,250. Remember, it sold 9 months ago, so you would multiply 6,250 times 9, and that would equal $56,250. You add that to what it sold before, 500,000 plus 500, and you're looking at listing your house for around $556,000 today. This is how appraisers come up with their appreciation rates. Again, this is one of the ways appraisers come up with their appreciation rates. I want you to be able to understand how to calculate an appreciation rate. When I am helping put together appraisal packages, and we're going to go through that here in a little bit, I consistently provide comps that are 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, even up to 12 months old. Because the number of sales has been low this year, right? Because there's just no inventory hardly at all this year. You're suffering from the same thing that we're suffering from here in Denver. And sometimes you do have to go back a little bit in time to find similar size, similar houses. And this way you'll know what that appreciation rate adjustment should be. it truly will change your business if you start using this, because here's some guidelines. It's very important for everyone to know what guidelines are, because guidelines are kind of like rules. And if you know the guidelines and the rules, you can typically win. So here's some really great guidelines for all of you to know. And it's actually the very first thing that I look at when I'm, excuse me just a second, I need to drink water. When I am working on a reconsideration of value, one of the very first things that I look at is, did the appraiser mark that values are on the front page of the appraisal? It says the values are either declining, increasing, or stable. And if they mark that values are increasing, here's what the guidelines state. The guidelines state that an appraiser is required to make an adjustment for date of sale on any comp older than 3 months. They're supposed to make a time adjustment. And wouldn't it be wonderful if you know what that time adjustment should be? Here's another guideline, that if they mark that values are stable to increasing, it's perfectly acceptable to go back up to 12 months for their comparables. Perfectly acceptable. Now, when they've marked the values are declining, this is when it gets a little tricky, because underwriters are going to want to see a minimum of 3 sales within 3 months, as well as a couple listing and or pending comps that all support appraised value. Because when values are declining like they did during the Great Recession, what they're trying to do, and why you're having to provide those active and under contracts, is they're trying to determine if this neighborhood is in a free fall. Because if it is falling and declining so quickly, even those new listings will be adjusting lower. So again, if values are increasing though, an appraiser is supposed to make those time adjustments on any comp older than 3 months. And this is how you can help figure out what that time adjustment should be. Plus, it's just a great tool to have when you're at a listing appointment and the homeowner's talking about their neighborhood, and to be able to talk about appreciation rates. You could use this and for flyers, for mailers, all kinds of fun things to market yourself. So please do try to start incorporating this. Some other lines that you can look at: total number of sales. You can see that that's coming down a little bit. The absorption rate, total number of active listings. That's something that we've been seeing. Ours are finally starting to tick up a little bit. But gosh, when we were in the middle of COVID, we saw a total number of active listings just falling because no one was listing their houses, right? The bottom, that next line, months of housing supply, 1 month, still shows that everything's really moving. There's so little inventory. It typically needs to get to be about 3 months before it becomes a buyer's market. So anything under 3 months is deemed to be a seller's market. Typically over 3 months is deemed to be a buyer's market. Next slide, we just ran through that, the median comparable sales price. We have sales days on market, median list price. That second from the bottom one is a really important line for all of you to understand and work with, the median comparable listing days on market. This is why I want you to run a 1004 MC before you go out on a listing appointment. So you have this data available to when you're sitting there meeting with that homeowner. And you can say to that homeowner, okay, according to this data here, if we properly price your house, it should sell, it should go under contract in about 5 days right now. This is going to be very important if you take a listing on where that homeowner is saying, no, I want to sell my house for 700, and you're thinking, gosh, I really don't see this thing really going for higher than 675. But you say to that homeowner, all right, I'm willing to give it a shot. However, according to the data, we should be under contract after 5 days. I'll double it. If we are not under contract within 10 days, then I will take this on if you will agree that you and I can sit down and talk about lowering the price, because we don't want your house to get stale. It'll sit. Once it starts to sit, people stop showing up because they think something's the matter with it. So we don't really have a lot of room to play with, but I'm willing to do that. But based off of this data, we'll have to renegotiate that list price. So that's an important line for all of you to be looking at. And then the bottom line is critically important too. The sale price is a percent of list price, sale price to list price ratio. As you can see, when I ran this, it's 101.41. So the typical house is selling for just over 1% higher than it was listed for. We're starting to see that number tick down, But when everything was super crazy this past spring, we saw that number be 105, 106, 107%. And how you use that number is when you have a buyer and they're losing out and they're getting discouraged, but they also haven't been listening to you, the great real estate agent, when you've been talking to them about properly or where to write that offer at. And you have this data now, and so you can say to that buyer, all right, you really like this house. Talk to the listing agent, they've got numerous offers already. So to be competitive, just to get our foot in the door, according to the data, we have to go at least like 1.5% above list price. I think this house is priced pretty well. We need to go at least 1.5% based off this data to even get our foot in the door. So that will help you kind of coax those buyers, help those buyers kind of come along with you on this path, which is, let's go buy a house today. Let's get under contract. You don't need to show them 40 more houses, get under contract. So use this data to help get those buyers off the fence and put together some stronger offers. Also, it's great when you're meeting the appraiser at a listing and you sold your house for higher than it was listed for. And you could say, according to the data, houses are selling for just over 1% higher. And that's about where we sold, was just a little bit more than 1% above our list price. And it helps them understand where the market is and how that sales price and that came about. So that bottom line is really important for all of you to understand and work with.
Hey, Scott, really quick question before we move on. Do all Oregon lenders have to use the AMC?
No. So do all Oregon lenders have to use an appraisal management company, or can they use a roster of appraisers? They can use their own roster of appraisers. So how it's set up, at least how it's set up, I don't know how other companies do it, but this is how it's set up through Cherry Creek. Cherry Creek has hired a company, and it's called Appraisal Shield. And Appraisal Shield acts as the firewall, the intermediary between Cherry Creek Mortgage's appraisal department and the appraisers. So when an order is placed, it goes to Appraisal Shield. Appraisal Shield spins the dial and it goes out to appraisers in that marketplace that have been brought onto a roster for Cherry Creek. So that's how we do it. How AMCs can do it is they could have 200 people on that they send blast out an appraisal order to, and they'll say whoever accepts this assignment first for the least amount of money gets it. And sometimes that works, sometimes it doesn't. I don't know if it's the best business model, but I also think that if you have some sort of control over your roster, know that the appraisers that are on there have a certain level of licensure, number of years in the business, that sort of thing. It can help you get a better product and a better appraisal product. I hope that answered your question, Terry. I can't see anyone.
Thank you.
You're welcome. All right. So we're now going to get away from the 1004 MC. I'm going to leave this up here for just a second, though. I have to go grab something over off of my desk. I'll be right back. So don't go anywhere, you guys. I'll be right back. All righty, I am back. So next, we're going to talk about what should be included in every appraisal package. Here are the things that should be included in every appraisal package. As you start this, I just want you to have these things all separate. Each of these things, 7, 8, 6, 7, 8, whatever you pull together for your appraisal package. As you get more comfortable doing this and pulling this information together, what some of my agents have kind of graduated to now is they actually present the appraiser with a book. And the book has all of these things in it. They take it to Staples or to Office Depot, and they actually have all of this information put into a hardbound book. And on the cover of the book, it says, this information is being provided to, and it has the appraiser's name for the property located at, and it has the address of the property on this date, and it has the date that the appraiser is going out to the property. And they give that book of all of this information to the appraiser, and it looks very, very cool and very impressive, and it's a great way to deliver the information. But what's equally neat is they've had many of these 2 or 3 extra copies made, and they take those out on listing appointments, and they say to a homeowner, you know, there are a lot of agents that don't feel comfortable meeting appraisers. I always meet the appraiser, and here's an example of a book that I've given to the appraiser that has all the information on it. And this is how I help the appraisers understand, and I help them with information to get as high of an appraised value as possible. The book looks really cool at a listing appointment, and it sets you apart from your competition. So it's something to maybe think about. First thing in that is your contract. Pretend this handout is your contract. I want you to give the full and complete copy of the contract to that appraiser. Do you all know what assume means? Assume means to make an ass out of you and me. Never assume that that the appraiser is going to have the most recent copy of the contract, even though you sent it in. Don't assume that the mortgage company or the bank has sent the appraiser the most recent copy of the contract with all amendments and addendums. Don't assume that they will know the sales price. There are many times where there are addendums or amendments that change that sales price, and the appraisers don't get it. So I need you to show up and make sure that they have a complete copy of the contract. Number two, a listing brochure. Listing brochure like this. It's got all the pretty pictures in it, all the fancy words about your house. Give the appraiser a copy of your pretty listing brochure. Number three, a list of all property upgrades, completion dates, and costs. I want you to ask your seller to put together a list of anything that they have touched in this house for the past 5 years. What have they touched in this house over the past 5 years? I want them to, anything that they have touched, I want it on a list. If they have receipts, I want you to provide receipts for anything that they've done to that appraiser. If you deal with somebody who flips homes, I want you to tell that property flipper to keep a receipt for every single nail. And I want you to provide a receipt for every single nail to that appraiser. Number four, a sketch of the property. If you are unsure about the size of the house, it is well worth you paying an appraiser $100, $150, $200 to go out and measure that house for you so you know how large the house is. In Denver, we have found that the Denver assessor records are incorrect about 80% of the time when it comes to the size of the house. So my agents actually have every single one of their listings sketched out and measured by an appraiser so they know exactly how large the house is in their neighborhoods. Number six, you're going to give them the listing history. This house was on the market for 7 days. Number seven, you're going to talk about the 1004MC and the appreciation rate and any other numbers you want to talk about. And number eight, you're going to give them your comparables. So next time you're at the grocery store, I want you to go get a bright colored pen. And you're going to use this in several places. First, if this is your contract, I want you to write the sales price right across the front of the contract, just like this. I'll be right back. SP Bucks 500K. I want you to write sales price $500,000 right across the front of the contract. Again, don't assume that the appraiser is going to read through all of these pages. Don't assume that they're going to find that amendment that changed the sales price from $495 to $500. I want you to write the sales price right across the front of the contract, just like this. Now, you're also going to use your pens when it comes to your comps. So if it is a comp you want the appraiser to use, I'd prefer you got a green Sharpie pen, and you get your green Sharpie pen, and you're going to put a star up in the corner of all comps you want that appraiser to use in a green Sharpie pen like this, because green is universal for go, it's universal for good, it's universal for money. In Oregon and Colorado, it's universal for weed. So go money, weed. Put a green star. You put a star because this appraiser has been getting stars on their homework since they were 3 years old. And when they see a star, it's universal for good. So this means it's a good comp. So use a green pen, put a green star up in the corner of it for all your good comps. Now I want you to get a red marker pen. And I want you, for all the comps that you don't think are good comps, I want you to take the red pen. I want you to put a red X across it. Sorry, I couldn't find my colored pens, but I want you to put a red X across it just like this. And I need you all to listen to me when I say this. It is actually more important to get rid of your bad comps than it is to even provide your good ones. Again, you as the listing agent should have more information about your home and everything that's sold around it than anyone else. And if you have a comp that is sold that is a bad comp, that doesn't look like a bad comp, you need to explain why the appraiser should not use that comp or what was going on with it. So here's an example. Let's say you have a house that sold just across the street for a lot less than you sold your house for, and you didn't get a chance to go into it. I want you to call that listing agent. I want you to ask, was there anything on the interior of that house that might have adversely affected its sales price? Just ask that question. And maybe that listing agent will say, you know what? There wasn't one thing in there. There were about 13 too many cats living in that house. Good to know. There were too many kitties. I want you to write too many kitties right across that comp with a big red X. So you've got your appraisal package all put together now. I'm going to coach you to start working on your appraisal package the minute you get your listing. You do not put together an appraisal package the night before you meet the appraiser. This is something that you're going to spend some time on, some energy, really put together a nice appraisal package with all this information. Now it's the day that you're going to meet the appraiser. So I'm going to talk to you about how you're going to deliver this information to the appraiser. And to do that, my agents and I call it the 2-minute drill. It's based on this idea that you can hold anyone's attention for a couple minutes if you smile. So always smile, wave your hands around a little bit and talk fast enough, okay? That's the basis for the 2-minute drill. I'm going to coach you to get to the property a minimum of 30 minutes before the appraiser is supposed to arrive. I'm going to coach you to open up the gates around the outside, because the appraiser is going to measure around the outside first and then come in and do a floor plan. So open up the gates around the outside. I'm going to coach you to put that sweet, super nice golden retriever away in a sweet, super nice place. Because I love dogs. I have 2 golden retrievers. But what I didn't like was when an overly friendly golden retriever would see me and come running at me and jump on me with its muddy paws and get mud all over my shirt, make me all dirty because I still have other appointments to go out on. And that just kind of irritated me a little bit. So make sure you put the happy dog away in a happy place. I want you to get this house ready to be seen. I want you to remember that this is your most important showing ever. This is your most important showing ever. I want you to tell your client to make sure that this house is 100% ready to go, picked up and ready to go. If you need to get there earlier than an hour to just make sure that the house is cleaned up, it is well worth your time to do it. You only have one chance to have a positive impact on the subconscious mind of that appraiser. And if that appraiser is walking through your house going, oh my God, what is that? Yeesh, thank God I have gloves on. Don't even want to go in that bathroom. Look at that. In their mind, their subconscious mind is more powerful than their conscious mind, and their subconscious mind is pinging. This house is disgusting. And if they're pinging, this house is disgusting, it's going to be really hard to get that house to appraise at the top of the market. So make sure the house is ready to be seen, all picked up and pretty and ready to be seen. I want you to lay these 7 or 8 things out across a dining room table or a kitchen countertop. Kind of use it as your personal PowerPoint presentation, just like I use this to stay on track. I want you, each one of these things to be laid out across the dining room table. I want you, when the appraiser gets there, they're going to measure on the outside. And when they come to the door to come inside, this is when the 2-minute drill begins. And I'm going to act one out for you, okay? So this is how a 2-minute drill should go. You should be standing at the door and you're going to say, come on in. Good to see you. Wow, that was some crazy wind the other night with that bomb cyclone going through here. Windy and rainy. I'm sure glad that's over with. I've got a little bit of information for you. It's in here in the dining room. And if you could follow me, please, I promise it won't take more than a couple minutes of your time. Really appreciate it. Thank you so much. And you're going to smile and you're going to wave your fingers. And you know what? That appraiser is going to follow you into the dining room because you don't look like you're going to hurt him, right? And you're going to say, so first off, here's a copy of my contract. Here's a copy of my contract. And as you can see, the sales price is $500,000. This contract is 100% complete with all amendments and addendums. I wanted to make sure you received that. Here's a copy of our listing brochure. It's got a bunch of pretty pictures in here, some nice words about this property. It also lists out all of the property upgrades, all the things that my homeowners touched in this house for the past 5 years. You're going to love seeing the high quality of the remodel of this home. This house has some beautiful finishes. I've included receipts for some of the larger items, and you're going to really enjoy seeing this beautiful home. There was a discrepancy between what we felt the size of the house was and the county assessor records. The assessor records are showing this house at 2110 square feet. That just seems small to us. We had an appraiser come out and measure it, and the house measured at 2450 square feet. I know you'll do your own measurements, but I just wanted to point that out. I've highlighted right here what the assessor is showing the house size of the house was. I think if somewhere along these 80 years that this house has been around, something just got missed. Here's our listing history. Our house was on the market for 7 days. In that 7-day period of time, we received 9 offers. We did not choose the highest offer. We chose what we felt was the best offer. And I've included the other 8 offers in their entirety. I did redact all of the personal information, but I wanted you to see the strong market reaction to our product. And I want you to say words like strong market reaction to our product instead of everyone liked our pretty house, because it sounds more professional, right? Then you're going to say, now I've got some comparables for you. The ones right here with the green star, these are my good comps. For instance, this one right here, the reason I put a green star on this one, and I know this one's going to probably freak you out a little bit because I know you like your comps within the last 6 months, but this sold 9 months ago, but it's a model match and it's right down the street. And if you use this comp right here and make the proper appreciation rate adjustment from the 1004MC, 15%, this comp easily supports our sales price, as do these others with the star. Now there was that house that sold right across the street. I'm sure you saw it. And I'm not going to lie, when I saw what it sold for, I freaked out, totally freaked out. But I called the listing agent and I found out why it sold for the little bit that it did, sold low. Because she said that there were, and I quote, there were too many kitties living in that house. I guess this house smelled something fierce. So make sure you call the listing agent up. I've told her to make sure to call you back when you call her to verify the kitty situation in that house. And when you are done going through all this information, you're going to smile and you're going to say, thank you so much for listening. I'm not going to bug you anymore. And you turn that appraiser loose. You sit down and you be quiet. Put all this stuff back in a folder. You've told them everything you need to tell them. Let them go do their job. Don't follow them from room to room. Just sit there quietly and let them do their job. Now, before the appraiser leaves though, got to get your 6 feet COVID away, 6 feet away. But I want you to see that second bullet point up there. And I want you to memorize that question. It's written this way for a whole bunch of reasons. I want you to get your 6 feet away with your mask on. And I want you to say, would you please give me the same consideration that VA appraisers are required to give and call and invoke Tidewater if you find you're not able to reach the sales price? Again, a VA appraiser is required to call and invoke Tidewater if they are unable to reach the sales price. Conventional and FHA appraisers are not required to do this, but they can, but you have to ask for it. This is a gift of time. So what is invoking Tidewater? The VA came out with this idea of invoking Tidewater in 2000, I believe it was 2002. It's been around for a while. And what they have said is to their appraisers, if you are not able to reach the sales price with your appraised value, you must call the bank or the mortgage company and you must say, I am invoking Tidewater. And then they give the address and then they hang up the phone. What it means is they're not able to reach the sales price and they are giving all parties to that transaction 48 hours to send in any support they have for that sales price. And after 48 hours, if that VA appraiser hasn't received anything, then they can go ahead and turn in that appraisal at the lower value. But they give everyone 48 hours to send in support. Now, the VA cannot require their appraisers to do something that violates Dodd-Frank. They can't do something that says to their appraisers, we're asking you to violate the rules. By calling and invoking Tidewater, the appraiser cannot tell you what value the property is coming in at. They can't tell you the comps they're using. They can give you no information. All they say is, I'm invoking Tidewater, and they hang up the phone. I was never a VA approved appraiser, because to be a VA approved appraiser, at least in Colorado, you had to be, I don't know, like 140 years old, it seemed like, I don't know. But I was never VA approved, and I never knew about invoking Tidewater until I became a lender. And what I found is that most conventional appraisers, FHA appraisers, have never even heard about invoking Tidewater. So how awesome would it be if you ask this question? I truly hope this happens. I hope the conventional or FHA appraiser says, I'm sorry, you want me to do what? I don't know what you're talking about. And you can say, oh, I was just at this appraisal class, and I learned about invoking Tidewater. And I learned about that appraisers, the VA appraiser is required to call and invoke Tidewater if they can't reach sales price. And I know they can't give any information regarding the value, the comps are using, nothing. All they're doing is giving everybody to that transaction 48 hours to send in any support they have for that sales price. Would you give me that same consideration? If you are there, you've been helpful, you supplied information that is actually useful to that appraiser, the chance of that appraiser calling and invoking Tidewater goes from about 0 to over 90%. Are they required on a conventional or FHA appraisal to do it? No. But if you've asked for it, you get a pretty strong chance of having it happen if the appraisal is going to come in low. It's critically important. If Tidewater is invoked, you're going to make some phone calls. So if the appraiser calls the mortgage company, the bank, and they say they're invoking Tidewater, and then the bank calls you or the mortgage company calls you and tells you the appraiser invoked Tidewater, you're going to make some phone calls. The first phone call is a call to the agent that's representing the buyer. If they've called you the listing agent first, you're going to call that buyer's agent. You're going to say something like, hey, I know we have a full appraisal gap coverage on this, but I bet your buyer doesn't want to write some big check for a low appraisal. So I'm calling to let you know that the appraisers invoked Tidewater. So will you please send in any support you have for the sales price? And I'm going to work on this too, because I don't want your buyer having to write a big check. So make sure you reach out to the other side, get them working on it. I want you to have a conversation with your homeowner. I want you to say to the homeowner, hey, I've got some news, and I always promised you during this transaction I would never hide anything from you. And I know we have full appraisal gap coverage, and we have some other things in here in the contract to protect us if the appraisal comes in below sales price. I know that. But I also know that there are unscrupulous people out there that know ways to kill a contract if an appraisal comes in low enough that have nothing to do with the appraised value. So if right now we have a low appraisal, and I'm going to fight like heck to get this thing to appraise its full sales price. But if it doesn't and things start to get sideways, I need to know from you, what is the lowest number you're willing to take on this and to keep this deal moving forward? By the appraiser invoking Tidewater, it's giving you some time to get in front of your homeowner and have a difficult conversation. Because what is your job as a real estate agent? Your job as a real estate agent is to say to all parties in the transaction, hey, everyone, eyes on me, right here, up here, eyes on me. We're walking towards closing, because what if the deal falls apart because of low appraisal? You don't get paid. Simple enough. Also, when you relist the property, what are the questions? Why are you relisting? Did you have a problem with the appraisal? I thought it sold for too high. And then it gets very difficult to sell that property. This gives you time to take your big, strong real estate agent arms and wrap them around this transaction and keep everyone moving towards closing, just from that simple gift of time of invoking Tidewater. So please ask that question before the appraiser leaves. All right. Next screen, we're almost done, everybody. PPSF stands for price per square foot. You are allowed to say price per square foot to every single person on this planet, with one exception, the appraiser. You are never, ever allowed to say price per square foot to an appraiser, because appraisers believe price per square foot is a lazy way to determine value. And the minute you say price per square foot, they're going to stop listening to you. So don't give them that piece. You can say it to your buyers, your sellers, everyone on this planet. You just can't say price per square foot to an appraiser, because they basically take the house, they break it apart into 100 different pieces, and they make adjustments for differences. I offer a total of 3 classes. This is my first class. I offer a class on how to adjust like an appraiser where we do kind of a deep dive into 1004MC. I talk to you about how appraisers come up with adjustment rates and various things like that. And then I offer a third class on how to analyze an appraisal, where I teach you how to read an appraisal. Because I believe that if you can't read an appraisal, and you should, well, first of all, you should be able to read an appraisal and be able to explain it to your buyers and sellers. But more importantly, I believe that an agent should be able to read an appraisal so that they understand what it's saying. So if there are errors, if there are things in the appraisal, they know what to say when they're doing a reconsideration of value. And I give you some tricks and some tools on a reconsiderations of value to hopefully help you get your appraisal to come up if you do have to complete a reconsideration of value. So I teach you how to read an appraisal, and then I give you some tricks and some tools on things that you can do to hopefully help you get your appraised value raised. So we're almost done. And this is typically where I'd say, are there any questions before I go to my last screen? But I can't do that right now. So we'll keep moving, and then I'll
Actually, hey, Scott, there are a couple questions that I just want to bring up.
Okay.
That have kind of come through the day.
Okay.
We'll start with the ones just talking about Tidewater.
Yeah.
Just a couple of them. One of them is more of a comment stating, invoke Tidewater to please remember that the real estate agent is not the client for the appraiser, the lender or the AMC is. The appraiser is likely not allowed to do such a thing as calling the agent to invoke Tidewater. This is typically spelled out in the engagement.
I apologize if there was a mistake or that I said to call the agent. I meant to say to call the bank or the mortgage company or the AMC to call invoke Tidewater that way.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Not the agent. No, the mortgage company is the one that calls the agent. So sorry for any misunderstanding.
And then another, just to go in a little deeper, there was a question about an agent that was concerned about asking the Tidewater question, that it will say to the appraiser up front that they're concerned that it won't appraise.
No, it's kind of like trying to hide things. It's better that you address these things up front. Invoking the Tidewater truly has this much, just a little bit to do with the value of the house. It's more about giving you the time, if there is an issue with value, to get these things corrected or to get more information to that appraiser. So I don't believe that by you asking invoking Tidewater is saying, hey, we're anticipating an issue with the appraisal. All that you're saying is, if there is an issue, that you would appreciate the heads up so that they can see if there's anything else that they can find to get to you. A good listing agent, if you put together a really good appraisal package, you've probably already gotten everything to the appraiser that you can. So the likelihood of you coming up with something new is going to be relatively small, but you're still going to try, you're going to look, you're going to see. But really, it's about having some conversations with all of the clients, the other side, to make sure that this deal keeps moving forward, even if the appraisal does come in low. Okay.
Thank you. And then just kind of going back to the 1004 MC reports, if you could give just a quick reminder of where to find that report.
You bet. So we'll go back here. So you go to Paragon, and then once you click those things, I'm having to get really close. So you go down to, on the right side of this screen, if you go down almost all the way to the bottom, you're going to see specialty views. So you click the specialty views button, and under specialty views, you're going to be able to choose, after you do this and you do specialty views, you can choose the 1004MC under specialty views is where it's hidden. It might be called the market conditions addendum under specialty views, but under specialty views, as I remember when I did this several months ago, you have to spool almost all the way to the very end of specialty views to find the market conditions addendum report. And that's where you click to generate that report.
And then once you, just to share with everyone, once you scroll down and find that report, you can always in Paragon add it to your favorites list, and it will show up at the very top of your list.
Ah, perfect. Thanks for the tip.
And then a couple of comments from some appraisers about the 1004 MC. One is mentioning the 1004 versus the 1004 MC. The 1004 asks if the neighborhood is stable, increasing, or decreasing, referring to the neighborhood. The 1004MC is direct comparable sales within the subject neighborhood. Often they're the same, but they could be different. For example, attached dwellings within a subject neighborhood could be stable over 12 months, while detached dwelling have shown an increase over 12 months, all within the subject neighborhood.
Exactly. That appraiser's 100% spot on. You do have to, so if you're in a neighborhood, I just did this because just truly, I was trying to just pull up enough data so that we could see what was going on. This isn't, 100% accurate for that space, but because you have to make the 1004MC, how I typically tell people, if you're in a neighborhood with very varied product, a whole bunch of different products that if you do have attached versus detached, you're going to want to choose as one of your parameters detached single family. And maybe you would also put in a parameter of size of house for the gross living area. So there are different parameters that you can put in. I don't like to dwell too much on the parameters in this class. I go more into the parameters in my how to adjust class. But typically when you're providing comps to an appraiser, you're trying to stay within a 10, never more than a 20% variance in size. And when you're putting in comps for the 1004MC, I typically say to think about using comps that are maybe around 30-ish%, 30, sometimes a little bit more, because a 1004MC is a high level picture of what's going on in an area. So you can definitely shrink that database down to make it more relevant to your subject property. The main thing is you're always going to have some sort of a gut check. Does this just even make sense? Is there something in there that's skewing the data? That's where you would see something maybe in this list that's skewing the data. It is a median, so it should take out the highs and the lows, and do it and get it. Is this, I think I have another way of saying this. Is this a perfect way to determine an appreciation rate? No, it's not. There is not a perfect way to do that. But this is as close as you're going to be able to get using tools available to all of us, especially to real estate agents. So it's a great starting point. Any other questions?
Yeah, kind of moving forward to interacting with the appraisers. The question is, so is it okay for an appraiser to tell us that they will not bother using the comps or other information we've given them? I've given most of these things to an appraiser only to be told he wouldn't take them or consider them. And what do we do if they refuse to take them?
Well, you can't force anyone to take anything. I think that the reason that you are there and the reason that I want you there is truly to provide information. Again, you as the listing agent, know more about this house and everything that's sold around it than anyone else. And you really are there to share that information. If the appraiser is unwilling to accept that, I don't know. I think that there's other ways that they could go about it rather than acting like that. Do they have to look at it when they get in their car? Nah. Can they just throw it away? Yeah. But if you're there and you're actually providing things that are of value and are worth their time and effort, they're going to appreciate it. My father, who is 82 years old, is still appraising. He's in perfect health. And he laughs and he calls me and he'll call and say, I was just out on an appraisal. And boy, that listing agent was so excited. She said she'd just been to this appraisal class. She didn't put 2 and 2 together, even though our last, just not with our last names, but she was all excited about the information. And he said, it is really helpful, but they, tell them to just calm down a little bit. It's good. I'll take it, So I think that there's different ways to go about handling those things.
Excellent. Just a couple more. One comment, and I think you actually answered this, but maybe just to kind of emphasize it. It was asked, I don't even include bad comps. Why would you include bad comps in that packet?
Again, because if there is a comp that is, what you don't want to have happen, so the one that I had written the too many kitties on it, I believe that most real estate agents got really good grades in creative writing class. And over time, I learned to read MLS comments and kind of understand what was going on in that house just through the comments. But remember, the only way that the appraiser is going to know what is truly going on in that house is through the MLS comments, conversations that they have with the listing agent, and the photos that are included. So if there are things that could adversely affect a sales price that aren't, easily available or somebody might not know, kind of like too many cats living in the house, smelled really bad, or it had a really weird floor plan. Something like that, an economic or a functional obsolescence, you had to walk through one bedroom to get to another bedroom. Without knowing those things, the appraiser could use that comp without having full and complete knowledge. So if you do know of something that did adversely affect the sales price and what that was, I think that it is really important that you get that information to the appraiser so that they know what's going on. They just have to verify with the listing agent, and then they will not use that comp for that property. And it could look, breathe, and just look like a great comparable property. And the appraiser just wouldn't know those little things from that because they don't have perfect information. Like the listing agent should have as close to perfect information as they can. Okay.
Thank you. Next on interacting with appraisers, can the seller, the owner of the house, be at the house when the appraiser is there with the listing agent, or do appraisers hate that?
I'll say that appraisers probably in general would rather just go into an empty house and be given a lockbox and be able to do what they want to do. I'll tell all of you a quick little story, and it's kind of goes along with this. But here in Colorado, when COVID hit, real estate was deemed to be an essential service by the governor originally. And so real estate was still moving. We were still able to show properties, go under contract. It got complicated, like all of you remember, it got really complicated, but we were deemed to be an essential service. Then this is what happened. There was a real estate agent that had a property, a little condominium listed for sale with a tenant in it. And it was during the period of time when you weren't even supposed to really leave your home unless it was like go to the store or something like that. You needed to leave, but otherwise you were encouraged to not leave your homes. And there was a showing for this property. And the real estate agent said to the tenant, you need to leave during the showing. And the tenant said, I'm not comfortable leaving. We're not supposed to leave our condominiums. I'm not comfortable even going down the hall unless I have to. I'm really scared and I'm not comfortable with this and I'm not leaving. Well, that real estate agent pitched a little bit of a fit with that tenant. You know what that tenant did? That tenant called the Attorney General's office and said, hey, do I really have to leave if this real estate agent is telling me I have to? Because you're saying I'm not supposed to. And guess what happened? That Attorney General called the governor, and guess what was no longer an essential service? Real estate. The appraiser might not like it if the homeowner's there. They might appreciate it if they aren't, but you can't tell anyone that they can't be in their home, especially during today's crazy times of COVID. So is it probably, as a rule of thumb, a good idea if you can have the homeowner not be there? That would be best. But if that homeowner is really intent on being there, just tell them to behave themselves and to maybe just not be too vocal. That would be helpful. Okay, did that help?
Yes, I think so. The next one is, could you discuss the ability to cross-reference different MLS listings? Because this is someone that's on the coast where they have Lincoln County MLS, which does not link with Paragon. What would you use if you were looking for comps using multiple MLSs?
Yeah, that's a tough one, because we have here in Colorado, we have multiple MLS systems as well. So Colorado Springs is on a system called Pikes Peak. Denver Metro is on a system called RE Colorado. Boulder and Northern Colorado are on a system called Iris. And then the mountains are on their own system. There's actually 2 or 3 systems up in the mountains. So when you are in those areas that overlap, it's critically important that you are pulling data from both systems to see how they go. In Colorado, they're supposed to communicate with each other. Well, except for Pikes Peak. Pikes Peak doesn't communicate with anyone else. I think it might with Iris, I'm not sure. But RE Colorado and Iris are supposed to share data. but it's not always perfect. So when you are in those areas where you have overlap, it's critically important to be looking for your data in both systems and pulling data from both systems, because some things can get missed. That is difficult.
Thank you. And actually, Colleen had a really great comment of possibly using RPR and doing this research, because RPR does cross those boundaries.
Cool.
But then one final question that came through the chat is, will all appraisers know what Tidewater means?
No, they don't. They really don't. And like I said, I didn't know what Tidewater meant either until I became a lender. So I just think it's wonderful that my real estate, the agents that I coach and that I work with, that have hired me to be their coach and that I help out, I believe that the way that I really truly help them grow their business is by helping them learn as much as they can. And there are ways to talk to an appraiser about Tidewater where you're not preaching, you're not finger pointing or doing any of that. You're just simply saying, I know, I just found out about it too. Isn't it cool? I know you call the bank, the mortgage company, you say you're invoking Tidewater. It gives everybody 48 hours. You can't give any hint of the value you're coming in at. You can't talk about the comps you're using. But I know the VA appraisers that are required to call and invoke Tidewater, they can't break any rules or they'd lose their license too. So it's a way for you to just show that you have you have this knowledge that 98% of the agents out there don't even have. And I believe that when you're knowledgeable and you can show that in a way where you're not being arrogant, and you can share your knowledge in a professional and courteous manner, that I believe that that is why some agents become really, really great and successful agents, and some agents don't. But being able to share knowledge and your experience with somebody that just doesn't know a term is so valuable. And it's a great way to, say, hey, when we get to the last screen and I wrap this all up, you'll kind of see how this whole class kind of ties together. And that invoking Tidewater is a little piece of that. So we're just about to that piece too. Okay. Anything else, Jeremy? Nope.
That takes care of us so far.
All right, we're going to go to the last slide, and I'm going to kind of wrap this all up for everybody. UCDP, what is it? So I want everyone to write this down. So everyone grab your pen. UCDP stands for, hold on, I need to drink a water. UCDP stands for the Uniform Collateral Data Portal. The Uniform Collateral Data Portal. Now, the Uniform Collateral Data Portal started to be built out by Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac, probably now, I'm going to guess around 10 to 12 years ago. I don't know, this past year has gone by so fast, I'm having a hard time with years anymore, but it started to be built out quite a while ago. And it's my belief that this portal was built out at the time to try to prevent another housing bubble from forming and busting like we saw during the Great Recession. So this portal was built by Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac, the government, to try to hopefully prevent another housing bubble from forming and busting. That's my belief on why it was built. Now, this portal was built out in 2 phases. I know I'm giving out a lot of acronyms right now, but hang in there with me. The first phase of the rollout of the Uniform Collateral Data Portal was called the UAD. The UAD. And the UAD stood for the Uniform Appraisal Data Set. The Uniform Appraisal Data Set. Now, what the UAD did was it said to all the appraisers across the country, as of today, you no longer use your terminology in your appraisal reports. You only use ours. You only use our terminology. So for those of you who have been in the business for a while, overnight, you couldn't even read an appraisal anymore, because it used to say things like this for condition. It used to say good, fair, average, excellent. poor. Now it says for conditions C1, C2, C3. Basically, what the Uniform Appraisal Data Set did was it made all appraisals uniformly written. Now, what can you do if you can make something uniformly written? You can data mine it. And that's step 2 of the rollout of the Uniform Collateral Data Portal, is when they came out with what is called Collateral Underwriter. It's also known as CU. Capital C, capital U, Collateral Underwriter. Like the school that I currently am sending a large amount of money to for my daughter as a junior in college up at Boulder. I'm sending a lot of money up to CU. Collateral Underwriter was the second phase of the rollout. What Collateral Underwriter is it is a risk-based analysis tool embedded in this portal. So you can understand how all of this works. An appraisal gets completed, it gets turned in by the appraiser to an AMC, it gets turned into the mortgage company, whatever. And that appraisal is automatically uploaded to the Uniform Collateral Data Portal. All appraisals that are done for lending purposes by Move Up Mortgage, by whether they be jumbo, conforming product, all appraisals are uploaded to the Uniform Collateral Data Portal. It does 2 things. It checks, is it UAD compliant? Are all the boxes, are all the words the right terminology? Are all the abbreviations correct? And if they are, then Collateral Underwriter is run. And that appraisal is given a score. It's a risk-based analysis score of 1 to 5. Now, a score of 1 to 2 means that there is a low risk associated with this appraised value. Another way of looking at a low risk score is looking at it like this. The machine agrees with the appraised value and saying, yeah, it's probably worth around there. We can see that. A score of 3 means that there is now a moderate risk associated with the appraised value. The score of 3 means this house might not be worth what the appraisers are saying it is. And we're going to require that the underwriters really take a look at this appraisal because we believe there's a higher risk associated with this appraisal. And then a score of 4 to 5 means that there is a high risk associated with this appraised value. A score of 4 to 5 means we don't think this house is really worth this much. We're going to hit it with a really high risk score of 4 to 5. So and then as a way to kind of, I guess, enforce all of this fun, the government, Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac, they have come out with the first ever blacklist of appraisers. And if an appraiser winds up getting enough big, nasty, high scores of 4 to 5, enough complaints, they could wind up on this blacklist of appraisers. And once you're on the list, you can't be removed from it. Your career as an appraiser is pretty much over and out, serious as a stroke. You do get one warning though, before you can get blacklisted. You do get a warning. They kind of fire a shot across your bow. And a very good friend of mine who appraises up in Boulder got this letter in the mail. It was more than a letter, it was a whole bunch of information. And he called me up. He is a fantastic appraiser. He's been doing it as long as, he's been doing it over 30 years, probably closer to 40 now. Great appraiser up in Boulder, lives up there. Boulder is a very unique market. And he called me up and he said, he's like, Scott, I just got this huge envelope in the mail. This is what it said. I'm like, read to me what it says. And he started to read it. And then he started to cry. Then he started to say things like, Scott, if I get blacklisted, we'll lose everything. We'll lose the house. My wife has never found a job making anything near what she made pre-recession. This is the only career I've ever known. This is the only thing I've ever done, Scott. I can't reinvent myself at this stage of my life. We'll lose everything. And he's sobbing on the phone. And I said, man, I'm going to come help you. So I drove up to Boulder, and between the two of us, we crafted a very strong response to this. What was really pinging in his market was that Google had come to town that year and it brought with it 1,500 very high-paying jobs. And all of a sudden, housing in Boulder went up by over 30%, and it freaked out the machine. And he ended up keeping his license and everything's been fine. But please know that all the appraisers out there know that there's this thing, the Uniform Collateral Data Portal, which is basically data mining all of their appraisals and issuing scores or grades on all appraisals. That can cause them a lot of trouble, cause their appraisal reports to get scrutinized, higher levels, more comps to be required, all this other nonsense. And if they get enough really high bad scores, they run the risk of falling under that into that possible blacklist. And that's really scary. So when I'm, how I want to tie this all up, this whole class, is that when I'm telling you guys to put together this whole appraisal package, do the 2-minute drill, smile, deliver this information, be there as a true support person to provide information, relevant, strong information. I'm not doing this to make your job harder. I'm doing this because the Uniform Collateral Data Portal is pretty scary. And you have to understand that the world that the appraiser lives in and breathes in every day is a very difficult world, full of a lot of people scrutinizing their work. And in today's market, with these values going crazy, going up so high, I'm seeing appraisals coming in low all the time. And we have to understand why that is. And just because you have somebody willing to buy something doesn't always mean that it's truly worth that much. But you also have to understand that the appraisers are putting their livelihood, their ability to provide for their families at risk if they are over appraising in areas. And you have to understand how that works, because they truly are our partners. None of us are our own ecosystem. We all have to rely on each other to keep our businesses growing. And the appraisal piece is a very important piece, just like your piece is and just like my piece is. And we all live and survive in the same ecosystem. And we have to understand all of the rules so that we can continue to succeed. Does anyone have any questions about the Uniform Collateral Data Portal or Collateral Underwriter?
Calculating appreciation using RMLSweb is most accurately done in an advanced search. Choose the property category and optionally the property type. Next, choose property status of sold. Then click on Days Back to set the search for the previous 3 months. Using the map range is the most precise way of setting the geographic area to pull data from. Once in the search results, clicking Show Summary will display the summary of the results, including the current median sold price. After copying this number, click Revise Search to change the sold date range to the same period 1 year ago. Now in the search summary, the historic median sold price is displayed. Now it's just a matter of plugging these numbers into the equation. The current median sales price minus the historic median sales price. That sum, then divided by the historic median sales price, delivers the appreciation for that specific area and time frame.
Take care. Bye, everyone.